This morning I have the honor of introducing Nancy Blaney to speak today. She's a familiar face to many of you, but I'll tell you a little more that you might not know about her. She moved here from Miami, Florida nearly 19 years ago when her husband Paul became academic dean of Emory and Henry College. She has a PhD in psychology, specializing in health psychology and behavioral medicine, focusing primarily on clinical intervention research, and is retired from the faculty of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Miami School of Medicine. Various aspects of the AIDS crisis, which first surfaced in the mid-'80s, were the focus of much of her career. She was part of a large research group that helped establish in Miami one of the first 3 federally funded AIDS centers in the nation, along with New York and San Francisco. That was a time of great crisis and upheaval for individuals as well as society at large. That crisis and the societal changes it wrought are what engaged her 35 years ago. The crisis that engages her today is the topic of her talk: surveillance capitalism, artificial intelligence, and our digital civilization. What will our future be? This is one of the most important questions of our time. Nancy.
Thank you. Microphone housekeeping. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. If it turns out you can't cut my voice is soft, just wave and I'll try to say it closer. This talk came about because my daily newspaper reading has focused on, for the past couple of years actually, has focused on a couple of topics that I had ever tended to read: business and economics. This is certainly not my area of expertise, and it hadn't been much of an interest either. But I felt compelled to try to understand more about what's driving the widespread disruption in our institutions, including democracy itself, since business and economics are so fundamental and have such outsized effects. That's where I started. What I found is that we're in the midst of a paradigm shift, a transformative process that will change, and I quote, our economy, our culture, our politics, and even our own bodies and minds in ways that most of us can hardly imagine. So says the historian Yuval Noah Harari, author of 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. The specifics of this paradigm shift are laid out in The Age of Surveillance, The Fight for a Human Future at the New Frontier of Power by Shoshana Zuboff, who is Professor Emerita at Harvard's Business School and a specialist in the digital economy. Zuboff primarily uses Google to examine our transition, but in this one, it's Zucked by Roger McNamee, and it's fun to read, very interesting. It's social media, Facebook in particular. McNamee was an early Facebook investor and Silicon Valley insider, but he now focuses on raising awareness of the threats that companies like Facebook pose to our political order. So today's talk is about what I've learned from these books and lots of articles about the challenges to us individually, as a society, and as a global order. I'll start with what the paradigm shift is about, then turn to surveillance capitalism and social media, then artificial intelligence, and then wind up with thoughts about where we go from here. So first, the paradigm shift. Zuboff depicts this rather nicely, I think, as the unrecognizability of the unprecedented, meaning it cannot be adequately grasped with our existing concepts, like calling the first automobiles horseless carriages, basically using old economy concepts to describe the new. But those give no understanding of the future form of the transformation or its consequences for society. And this is the mark of a society-wide paradigm shift, what we're in right now regarding the new digital age of artificial intelligence. Harari's view is that artificial intelligence will probably be the most important agent of change in the 21st century. And in fact, just a small sampling of recent articles from the past few months reveals the breadth and depth of the changes underway even now. One article is headlined, "Big Tech may look troubled, but it's just getting started." And it's about tech companies being attacked for abuse of power, but that they're not backing down despite calls for regulation, simply because there's so much of life that's left undisrupted. So instead, they're expanding. Another headline, wielding rocks and knives, Arizonans attack self-driving cars. It's about enraged residents' reactions to Google's driverless car testing program that's being conducted in their town without their having been asked. Attacks like slashing tires, waving a handgun at the back of the driver, suddenly hitting the brakes hard, trying to run the van off the road. As one person said, I don't want to be their real-world mistake. Another headline, we should be able to take Facebook to court. A privacy violation is a real harm. It's about a lawsuit consumers filed against Facebook for using facial recognition technology on their photos without their consent. What was Facebook's defense? That the law doesn't give users the right to sue them just for breaking the law. To be able to sue, they have to show tangible evidence that collection of their own data damaged them in a measurable way, like physical, emotional, or financial harm. An article titled, The Pentagon Wants to Weaponize the Brain. What could go wrong? It's a feature article in the Atlantic magazine last November about the Pentagon's R&D department, DARPA. Its mission is, and I quote, to make human beings something other than what we are, with powers beyond ones we're born with, by merging humans and machines through neurotechnology. Very focused infotech biotech merger. It's basically enhancing the senses to gain superior advantage. Obviously, this has enormous ethical, legal, and social implications. But what frightened me the most about this was the lead scientist's reply when asked if he thought anyone in Congress had good ideas about legal or regulatory structures for shaping an emerging neural interface industry. And he said that he thought market forces would be the shapers, that companies would take the discoveries and develop products and then do their job of convincing people that these will help them be a better version of themselves. So as these articles show, the paradigm shift is here and moving fast. So let's turn to surveillance capitalism and see how we got to where we are today. First, what is surveillance capitalism? It's a business model. It's hidden from you, but it unilaterally claims human experience, yours, as free raw material to use for its own commercial purposes. And it's the default model for most internet businesses, basically monetizing your internet use. Your digital tracks from everything you do on the internet are scooped up and fed through machine intelligence to create models predicting what you will do now, soon, and later. These models have been sold to advertisers to better target you for sales. This generates wealth both for the internet company, Google, Facebook, and the like, and the companies that sell you stuff. But it doesn't stop there. Surveillance capitalism also uses algorithms to shape our behavior in ways that meet others' commercial needs. Initially, surveillance capitalism extracted more and more digital tracks from each user to make behavioral prediction more accurate. But it became clear that the best predictions would come not just from extracting, but from intervening to shape user behavior more reliably to lead to the desired commercial results. Zuboff notes that this was a crucial turning point, the merging of the business model of surveillance capitalism and the early ideals of ubiquitous computing, otherwise known as the Internet of Things. And this is how surveillance capitalism migrated from online, the virtual world, to the real world. In fact, the Internet of Things is viewed essentially as an open door to behavior modification. For example, you're a coffee drinker. The machine already knows that. And as you're driving, you get a phone notification that you're only 2 blocks from a Starbucks. That's just a friendly prompt to your behavior. To Zuboff, this was a metamorphosis. The Internet had gone from a thing that we have to a thing that has us. The Internet of Things goes far beyond mobile phones and tablets. Being connected now happens through daily life with our smart network devices, our TVs, household appliances, cars, Fitbits, personal assistants, Alexa, home security and monitoring systems, even medical devices. No matter what they do for you, and they do things for you, they collect data from you, whether you know it or not. Even the innocuous robot vacuum Roomba, which our daughter has one of, tracks and transmits data. And in 2017, it scrapped its program that sold people's floor plans. It's good news that it's gone, but it's scary that it existed at all. More chilling is Zuboff's description from a 2016 medical journal article. It's a study on diabetes monitoring apps found a frenzy of unauthorized data collection triggered simply by downloading the software. Plus, invisible to the user were other apps that could read the user's phone and identity, gather location data, view the Wi-Fi connections, and activate the phone's camera to access photos and videos. A few apps were even worse, even activating the microphone to record the user's speech. Since selling information about you is the basis for surveillance capitalism's profits, they're determined to discourage, eliminate, or weaken any laws that govern this, especially for facial recognition and biometric data. There's no federal law, so battles occur at the state level. Illinois currently has the most comprehensive law. And Facebook in particular works hard to prevent other states from enacting similar laws. From 2009 to 2017, its lobbying budget increased by a factor of 50, and in 2017 alone was $11.5 million. Surveillance capitalism has made its staggering inroads into society so quickly by following a predictable sequence of stages. McNamee uses Facebook's slogan, "Move fast, break things," to capture this, changing it to "Move fast, break things, apologize, repeat." So after moving from the virtual world to the real world, surveillance capitalism moved on to the social world, where society itself, not just individuals, became the new object of extraction and control. And this is where we encounter the canaries in the coal mine, as Zuboff says, calling social media a massive global experiment where society's youngest members already experience a deep and in many cases destructive attachment to social media. While the average adult checks his or her phone maybe 30 times a day, the average millennial checks over 150 times. Zuboff reports results from a study, The World Unplugged, in which students were asked to avoid all digital media for only 24 hours. And in the students' own words, they were lonely, they couldn't sleep, they were overwhelmed by emptiness, went into panic mode. As one said, maybe it's unhealthy that I can't be without knowing what people are saying and feeling, where they are, what's happening. So the inescapable elephant in social media is Facebook, which was created by Mark Zuckerberg to bring the world together. But as McNamee noted, Zuckerberg's idealism was unbuffered by, and these are his words, either realism or empathy. He embraced invasive surveillance, careless sharing of private data, and behavior modification in pursuit of unprecedented scale and influence. Facebook has built giant data profiles on every user and provides each one with a customized Truman Show. It starts out giving users what they want, then algorithms nudge user attention in directions that Facebook wants. Algorithms choose posts calculated to press a given user's emotional buttons because scaring users or pissing them off increases their time on the site, which then increases revenue. Both Zuboff and McNamee focus on the effects of new technology, how exciting and special it is at first, and then it becomes so integrated into our lives that we depend on it and can't imagine what life was like before. What's not so obvious is how technology changes us, the way we engage with society, substituting passive consumption for content and idea-specific engagement, digital communication for conversation, and converting us from citizens to consumers. As McNamee says, if you are a fan of democracy, this should scare you. He points out that Facebook has become the public square worldwide for addressing issues, but that it's not just a forum. It's a profit-maximizing business controlled by a single person. It's a massive artificial intelligence that influences every aspect of user activity, and the fact that users are not fully conscious of Facebook's influence simply magnifies the effect. So how does Facebook modify our behavior? There are many tools, but the overarching concept is straight out of Las Vegas and slot machines. It's that unpredictable, variable rewards stimulate addiction. Technology exploits the fact that our bodies respond in predictable ways with faster heartbeats and dopamine release when we sense the potential of a reward. Responses that are meant to be only momentary and infrequent, but if triggered often, are harmful effects. There are harmful effects, especially for children and adolescents. In the context of social media, there's fear of being separated from one's phone, craving ever more stimulation from digital devices, problems in interacting with others. Kids get hooked on games and apps that change the nature of relationships. Cyberbullying rises. Adults get locked into filter bubbles that reinforce pre-existing beliefs. Plus there's reduced sleep quality, higher stress, anxiety, depression, inability to concentrate, irritability, insomnia. As for Facebook's toolbox for modifying our behavior, the like button is one. Getting likes has become a powerful social phenomenon, and along with photo tagging is a yardstick of social validation and belonging. Notifications tease users constantly. Autoplay and endless feeds eliminate cues to stop. The goal of Facebook's artificial intelligence is to figure out which content will keep each of us highly engaged and monetizable. And remember, this is tailored to each individual for all content, even the news feeds. Every user's action gives Facebook a better understanding of that user, enabling more precision in manipulating attention, anticipating thoughts and emotions, and influencing behavior. As Blaney states, for the 1.4 billion users who check Facebook every day, reinforcement of beliefs daily for a year or two will have an effect, not on each person, but on enough to be both effective for advertising and harmful to democracy. There's not time now to review all the recent and important criticisms of Facebook: election interference, hate speech, fake news, though the recent New Zealand massacre takes the use of social media as terrorist tool to a new level. I do, though, want to visit a long-standing and pervasive problem, and that's Facebook's disregard of user privacy, because it's in the news again with Zuckerberg's recent announcement that he's shifting Facebook toward greater privacy. Rather than being a digital town square, more of a digital living room, a concept already implemented in China's social media network. Facebook's version would involve encrypted communications within small groups and user ability to remove posts after a certain time period rather than them being kept as permanent records. Its messaging platforms, WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger, would stay separate but become interoperable. It sounds like progress, but responses have been quick and sharp, pointing out that critical problems remain, that Facebook could still collect and sell data about users to enable micro-targeted ads, still purchase data from data brokers who collect vast amounts of personal data, often on health and finances. It could still create shadow profiles, data on people who don't even use Facebook. And there are two perverse effects. One is that making them separate messaging platforms interoperable means sharing data that violates user privacy. And message encryption would release Facebook from having to moderate content and so be responsible for it. Many see these steps as too conveniently aligned with Facebook's needs, whether concerned about government regulation, public scandal, or profitability, and more like shrewd competitive positioning dressed up in privacy rhetoric. So, on to artificial intelligence, called AI. It's not only the engine that makes surveillance capitalism possible. It's the driving force behind the paradigm shift to a digital civilization. So what might it mean for our future? The smaller, more personal effects of AI are captured by a recent headline: are you an Amazon or an Apple family? The point is that within the next decade, the AI ecosystem will converge such that we'll have to pledge allegiance to one of the few companies that now act as operating systems for everyday life. Once your data, your gadgets, appliances, cars, and services are entangled, you'll be locked in, making one of these companies a custodian of all your family's personal and behavioral data. For example, since 2017, Amazon has partnered with Lennar, the nation's largest residential construction firm, to install Alexa in its homes, which all come with smart speakers, door locks and e-keys, video doorbells and thermostats, and built-in neighborhood surveillance such that residents can even see surveillance footage from their neighbors. As for the larger effects of AI, Zuboff notes that industrial capitalism depended on exploiting and controlling nature, with catastrophic effects they were only now realizing. Surveillance capitalism exploits and controls human behavior, in her view, making it as significant a threat to human nature as industrial capitalism has been to the natural world. Harari talks about AI in terms of job loss, also that the merger of infotech and biotech could enable computers eventually to hack humans and outperform them in seemingly unique human skills, meaning ultimately that no job would remain truly safe from automation. He also emphasizes the need to develop new social and economic models as soon as possible, based on the principle of protecting people, not jobs. He thinks that democracy in its present form cannot survive the biotech-infotech merger. Either democracy will reinvent itself, or humans will come to live in digital dictatorships. And if we want to prevent the concentration of all wealth and power in the hands of a small elite, the key is to regulate the ownership of data. This, he says, is a conundrum. How do you regulate the ownership of data? Yet he says this may be the most important political question of our era. In fact, last month, the Summit on Work and Leadership in the Age of AI dealt with just that topic. Both activists and industry leaders agreed that government regulation was crucial to ensure that ethical AI did not bow to financial pressure. And some of America's tech chiefs have even lobbied for a comprehensive federal privacy law. Europe has the world's toughest rules at present. A crucial point to remember is that technology itself is not the problem. It's value neutral. It's the business model that's gone rogue. And addressing that is exactly the focus of the Public Interest Technology University Network, an organization formed in March by 21 leading universities, among them Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, City University of New York. Their goal? To make the public good a priority over industry agendas, and specifically to train the next generation of software engineers, policymakers, civic leaders, and social justice advocates to develop, regulate, and use technology for the public good. Similarly, the Center for Humane Technology, spearheaded by McNamee's colleague Tristan Harris, focuses on human-centered software design to return technology to being a tool that serves user needs rather than exploits them. McNamee acknowledges that Facebook's dark side is unwelcome news. Most users love it and depend on it and crave its convenience and connection, and it's free. But he emphasizes that the true costs, the downstream effects, are considerable and they're just not apparent. He says that too few among us realize that our data are being used to build artificial intelligence systems that predict our behavior, a point Zuboff also emphasizes, saying that we just don't realize the extent to which user contracts are essentially a private eminent domain, a unilateral seizure of rights without consent. McNamee reviews the litany of downside effects on democracy that internet platforms in general have, and then concludes that what we love is harming the country and the world, and that it has created problems for which there may be no technology solutions, and that this threat justifies aggressive regulation to slow growth and to change incentives. And he states that each of us can exert at least two forms of pressure. We can change our own digital behavior, and we can demand that politicians take action. Indeed, McNamee says there's no reason to believe that the Internet of Things will be benign unless users and policymakers demand it. He urges us to take time to consider the dark side of technology before we embrace it, and says that we can insist on human-driven technology. Finally, in the words of Stephen Hawking, and I quote, "All of us, not only scientists, industrialists, and generals, should ask ourselves what we can do now to improve the chances of reaping the benefits of future AI and avoiding the risks. This is the most important conversation of our time." Thank you.